Steve, that's why you're here, right? So can you tell us your take on CBILS and where things are up to, certainly from your perspective?
Sure. Yes, yeah, certainly. Well, obviously, it was launched. It was launched middle of last week, and it's actually a huge amount for banks to get their heads around. And we I think will finally have our documentation out next week on Monday. The aim is that we'll get the official kind of documentation out next week. But we are absolutely buying into CBILS and will help out customers. We're only going to help out existing customers because we've got tens of thousands of customers that are borrowing currently, and those are the customers that we're going to prioritize because we have a limited resource. We're being inundated with requests at the moment, and it's kind of 50-60 times at the normal level of inquiries that we would have to deal with. So we will have to prioritize, and we'll certainly look at our own customers first, and see what we can do to help out as quickly as we can. What we are doing is suggesting people look at the government schemes, because I think borrowing is an easy decision to take when the government appears to be throwing the money at it, but all this money's got to be paid back. And I think a lot of companies that I've had a conversation with already, they're going to saddle themselves with debt to get them through a short-term problem, only to cause a bigger problem further down the line.
Well, that's what we're saying, because right now all the support that the government's given is actually a deferment. It's not really support. So once we get back into the swing of things, suddenly your VAT, your payroll, your corporation tax, your rent, that's all going to be a loan that needs to be paid back, sitting on your balance sheet.
Yeah. And I one of the things, I mean, Metrobank is also, like any other bank, you're going to have staff at home, right? People adjusting to homework. So we're adjusting. You're not as effective. You're finding a new routine. All of those sorts of things. At the same time, you've got like how many fold increase in inquiries for a product that has just been thrown out there that you're trying to get your head around. And one of the questions when I've been asked about this, I think it's getting the queue, isn't it, Steve? If
on a good day, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to get a loan application through.
Yeah.
When conditions are normal and you've got the information, right now, like Steve said, he's got 10,000 applications. There's a queue. Now, the best way is to try and get ahead in that queue, and that is have to have the MI ready. So luckily, that with this cloud computing, making tax digital, hopefully most of the clients will have all that data.
So when you say MI, that management information. So
management information, your accounts today. Yeah, so where we're looking at with our clients, we're getting inundated with calls as well. But we've got a package now. Yeah, we've got all your latest accounts. We assist them doing the forecast. We get the payables and receivables. Then we hand it over to the bank, someone like Steve. They've got to make a hard decision. Yeah, because even though you've got all that data, when do you know business is going to start again?
Right. So, Steve, what do you want to see in an ideal application? You know, what information would you need at Metrobank to assess as quickly as possible?
Excellent question.
We need financial information, as up to date as Sheetal said. If you can get management information up to the closest you can do. We also, because one of the things we have to do is demonstrate that it's a viable business before the coronavirus issues have hit. So we need the financial information just to confirm that the business, definitely a viable business up until the problems. We then need to see a detailed breakdown of what you want the funding to cover, and also a detailed cash flow so that we can see how that fits in. Because what we don't want to do is fund a business that they think it's going to last them 6 months, but their cash flow dictates that it will only last them 3 months, and then we've got a problem in 3 months' time. So we do need a detailed breakdown to understand what it's for, and then the cash flow forecast will evidence how that will work and how that will keep the business afloat for the period of time that we're looking at funding.
And you're obviously looking at exit as well, so you're looking at some assumptions to show how you're going to get out of this and pay this back.
Well, right? the loans are up to 6 years, so it's a term fund, so we would look to see that the business, the cash flow can demonstrate that with this injection of funds now, the business will be viable again, let's say in 6 months' time. We are hoping that in 6 months' time we'll be back to business as usual, but at the moment we don't really know. So it will depend on how robust the business has been leading up to these problems. Because if it was struggling beforehand, it will make it a very, very difficult decision to lend more money into that sort of business.
Absolutely, and also it's that when business does come back to normal, it would have to pay back the loan, pay off the backdated taxes because you've been given a holiday, pay the rents if they've been put on hold. So that has to be incorporated into the cash flow as well, because all that stuff needs to be paid back.
And this is an investment decision at the end of the day, isn't it? Because, you're going to, I mean, there's a survival element to it. But if you're taking on a loan and potentially, whilst the government backs part of it, a lot of directors are going to be asked to back the rest. I know there's an unsecured element, and I'm not clear on what proportion is, but I'd imagine a lot of banks will be saying we would like an additional guarantee or assurances from you as the owners. Yep. So that you want to not only pay that money back, you want to see a return on that risk you're exposing yourself to.
Yeah, and the CBILS scheme isn't set up to really give the banks a huge amount of comfort. There are some elements of it where we are overexposed that obviously isn't mentioned in the press and people don't know about that. It's not as simple as the 80% guarantee, because the level of claims is capped at 20%. So if we're supporting a lot of businesses, all of whom potentially any of them could go under during this period of time, we're only capped at we can only claim up to 20% of the money we lend, so it has potentially a much wider impact from a risk perspective. And we have to factor that in, and that's why we will be very cautious. As a lender, we're particularly very cautious anyway, but we'll be very cautious about how confident we are with the viability of the business after all the troubles subside, because the government aren't going to step in and repay any losses that the banks incur. That's not the deal.
Just back on that management information. So even when they give you the forecast and that, you're looking for them to actually have a reason for that money as well. It shouldn't be for stuff the government's already supporting, like employees and paying off taxes and stuff. That's really important.
Yeah. That's really important. We need to understand exactly what it is, and again, if the job retention scheme can cover the salaries, that's a far better route to go than borrowing the money for that. But we would be open to supporting businesses and covering any fixed costs that can't be kind of supported elsewhere. But it is going to be a lengthy process. What we are trying to do and currently doing already now is to help as many customers as we can, as quickly as we can, with things like repayment holidays on asset finance, commercial mortgages. No, we've got we've responded very quickly to that, and I'm seeing requests going in and being literally turned around straight away. Yep, no problem. We've not got any. There certainly doesn't appear to be any risks around delays around getting that sort of thing pushed through quickly to help customers out in a very short term.
Well, so basically, we need to provide information on the fixed costs that are not going to be supported, and that's what the client's borrowing on, and he's got to realize there's risk on that amount.
Following up on that, Steve, because a lot of businesses and a lot of your customers, whilst they might, so the first thing that you want them to have a track record with you, that you're an existing customer. So I suspect you'll be looking at businesses that have been around for a little while, right? So that you don't want stuff that's if an application comes in from potentially a fledgling business that has got great potential, but it's only 6 months old or even just a year old, it's not a lot of track record. But the second point, a lot of businesses as well may well bank with you, but they may well have funding for asset funding elsewhere, other financial obligations that they're obviously trying to negotiate. Metrobank have been good, for example, with your customers at being understanding, but other lenders might not be, especially some of the new emerging lenders. But you don't want to see your money going in only just to meet those payments to another funder, do you? You want to see it meeting necessary business costs.
Unless it is a genuine fixed cost that can't be dealt with in any other way, then I guess we would have to take a view. But yes, certainly this funding, we wouldn't expect our funding to be used to repay other lenders or directors' salaries. We can't fund everything for that. We've got to be sensible about what people are actually borrowing the money for. But we would expect the customers that we're going to help in the first instance are going to be the customers that we've got as you said, Tom, with a track record, and the reason for that is that the more we know about our customer, the easier the decision is to help them. So we can help more customers quicker by prioritizing the customers that we know the best. Therefore, we can make a quick decision. We can get the funding out to them very quickly, move on to the next one. One of the things that I have had conversations with is people that don't bank with us, but I know them. And I've said, look, we just can't help. You need to try your own bank. And he said, yeah, I've been trying my own bank. I can't get through to them. I can get through to you. But I can't help.
I would have said that would have been in the pub, Steve. But obviously not. The press is having a go at the banks at the moment. Okay, and I think we need to come back to that. There is a resource issue. The banks aren't completely underwritten. The government has provided something, and again, like a lot of these things, it takes time to come into play. the banks haven't got also the banks are independent businesses. This is a risk exercise. And if the government had said, here's a blank check, we want you just to facilitate the payments out to the consumer,
happy days.
Fair enough. Happy days, right? You meet this criteria. But they're not saying that. They're saying that you carry some of the risk. And the banks are still reeling from, a history where they've actually potentially maybe overreached themselves. There's additional requirements to hold capital. So you've got to be really careful when none of us know how long this is going to go on for. So there's got to be some understanding there, hasn't there?
Now, from the business owner's point of view, and hopefully there's a lot of business owners watching this right now, we understand that the bank now has to make a decision, and the kind of criteria Steve just told us the issues that the bank have. So we've got to provide the best business case possible for that entrepreneur. And if the business case isn't great, the entrepreneur should take a step back and go, well, we don't know when everything's going to start again, and make a decision, basically use that data.
Absolutely.
There's going to be a lot of failure. There's going to be a lot of businesses that just aren't viable, and not necessarily through lack of trying or its track record. The reality before the outbreak is very different to the reality now. And the truth is, not many business can suffer a sustained period of no staff, no trading, and no opportunity, and then to restart it's incredibly difficult without support.
Unfortunately, there's the emotional element. I had a call with a client, and yesterday, and I was saying, take a step back, get into that whole position, take a deep breath, see what's going to happen over the next few months. We don't know when business is going to start again,
and how it's going to
start. And his response to me: I've started this business 6 years ago. I've put everything into it. It's doing really well. I'm going to need the money. Are you telling me to walk away? Yeah. Emotionally, this is my business. Yeah. I can't take that step back. I do need to fund it. Yeah. And it's really hard conversation to have. He goes, yes, you are right. I'm going to end up with more debt when we come out of it. We don't know when we're coming out of it, but shouldn't I, as the business owner, take that risk? I've done it for 6 years. So really emotional.
My response to that, and I've had it obviously a lot, is we can't mix up the value and the experience and the capability and the knowledge you've built up over the 6 years. Maybe the vehicle, maybe the structure that you've set up can't be converted. So really, funding is there to manage the adjustment and repurposing and restarting your business. If the model that you created was fantastic for everything 6 months ago, but won't work in a period of a slow restart, or depending on what's going to happen, I suspect we're going to have recessionary winds here, right? We're facing a really tough period of recovery. If that model isn't right, we need to look at, you don't want to throw good money after bad. You don't want to throw more risk, and you don't want to put your house on the line. You don't want to do those things. What you need to do is go, okay, well, if that's not viable, what would be a viable structure? And how do I move to that viable structure if I can't use the funding or that conversion? Often that might mean an insolvency process. That's the world I'm in.
Yeah.
The same entrepreneurs restart. They don't lose their experiences. They have good relationships with their customers and stakeholders. Everyone will understand now that this isn't about bad management. This is about just natural disaster. I think we will accept that. So it would be a tragedy for someone to say, commit to a loan that isn't sufficient to deliver a viable business for the long term. And that's really the aim of this.
Brilliant. I think that's really interesting, and I think that answers a lot of my questions and probably my clients. I've got a question though to ask Steve, actually, especially after yesterday's announcement on the help for the self-employed. It seems that the self-employed will get that help, but probably around June time. The employees on the other scheme are going to get some help, but again, we don't know when that's going to happen. And the employers have to be around. They can't just shut up shop to be able to furlough their staff and support them. So in the meantime, even to get to June, clients are going to need cash injections. How would you go about doing that?
I was talking to an accountant yesterday who's already obviously engaging, as you will be, Sheetal. And he said that he would be able to confirm that the customer was eligible and the amount that they would be expecting come June, that they could then bring to their bank and say, look, I'm in this situation. My accountant has confirmed I'm eligible. I will be going into the scheme, but I've got to wait till the end of June. For our customers in that situation, we know obviously that the environment that we're in, with an accountant confirming that yes, they're eligible and the money's due, that will make the process a lot more easy, simple for us to then look at them, as a sole trader and say, right, we'll give you a small overdraft, 3 months, £7.5 grand or £10,000 for 3 months, and crack on and go with that. Now that overdraft facility is outside of any government scheme. It's not part of the CBILS scheme. It is just a business overdraft for that sole trader to get them through the next 3 months. So our normal lending would apply. But for the ones which have had they have operated their accounts well, they've got their books are in order, and they come to us and say, this is the situation. We will be looking at kind of pressing those through really, really quickly and getting them some support until the end of June when the funding comes through.
With our clients, we're trying to package everything up before they come to you, because again, there will be questions to ask. They're going to give you data, you're going to send it back, this is not correct. It is actually get to a point where then they can approach you with all the data and makes your life easier.
Well, absolutely, and the more information, and particularly when you're talking to your clients, the biggest thing you can do is if it comes in and it makes sense and it's a viable request. Because if someone comes in and says, right, I need £100,000, and you have a cash flow forecast that shows they're going to run out of money in 3 months' time, yet they need it for 6, then it's going nowhere, and we'll kick it out and it'll go back to the back of the queue again. So it's got to make sense when they come to us, and if you can imagine, it's going to go into our credit team. The credit team are going to want to they're going to want to see a viable business before, and they want evidence to show that as far as we can see, it's going to be a viable business at the end of it, and the numbers have got to show that going forward.
So I think that's good information. What do you reckon?
There's some great information there, Steve. I have to say thank you so much for participating and being part of this, and to have you back as well.
That'd be excellent.
Because this is changing all the time. This is the day that the Prime Minister's come down with the virus. There's a lot going on. I think a lot of the things that are coming into play, maybe well-intended, having all sorts of problems. Let's just see how it goes, and it will adjust. But thank you so much for participating.
Pleasure.